my secret now. I see dead people.
Welcome to Blondes and Booze. You are about to embark on a journey, one that often leads to more questions than answers. But fear not, your host, Krista, Aaron, and Brandy have the experience, the perseverance, and yes, even the gifts to pull back the veil and allow us to glimpse the other side. They will share not only their experiences, but will introduce you to world-renowned researchers and experiencers to help you find answers in the murky waters of what we call the paranormal. Their bonds with each other reach far beyond friendship, resulting in a pull no punches approach to the many subjects they explore. Their goal? To open eyes, hearts, and even minds to what lies on the other side, and the answers residing there.
Hey everybody, welcome to News.
Yes, and the woo. And the woo. It's kind of like it's a part 2 series from last night, kind of. We're just going to talk about a different monster.
Yep.
Which is awesome.
And the reason being, you want to tell them?
Well, we'll let Tex tell him. He's going to be the tour guide.
Yeah, I'm the one leading everybody to their untimely death.
That's why I'm going to be at the back of the pack. I'll have Donnie to throw in front of me.
Right?
Yeah, we had a conversation about that with Donnie when he was in chat last night.
Oh yeah, no, I was like, no. Trust me, you're there to be the wall of meat that protects me from the either the Lake Worth goat man or the crocodiles. I'm sorry, alligators that reside there. We don't have crocodiles, we have alligators.
Right. Yeah. Well, because they always say that, all you have to do is just run faster than somebody, the person behind you. Just got to run faster than them, and the thing that we laugh about is don't be first and don't be last, They're in the middle. Or in your case with Donnie, just be stronger than Donnie and just throw him.
That's my plan.
Well, he's, he when we go around to Brown Springs a lot and stuff, he always threatened to what we call shame me, and just pop me in the leg so he could run off.
It's not a threat. I'm just letting you know so you're not surprised if it happens.
So what do we say?
Nothing but love for you, brother.
Hey, I got nothing but love. Look. Your sacrifice is supremely appreciated and beloved.
We're just telling you now.
I'm just telling you now. I will pour one out for you when you are eventually eaten by the creature.
Well, and it's a good thing that this will be airing on Friday night while we were at the conference and all that good stuff. And Donnie won't be in chat to see it, so we can talk about it when we want, right?
Oh, yes. Right. Yeah, I've already told him. Like, no, you are the shield, the human shield I will hold while I return fire.
Right. That's funny. I'm looking forward to this trip. It's going to be a great time.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So as everybody can tell by now, we are pre-recorded. We are not live because we are all at the Dogman conference. So
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We are at the Dogman conference at this time.
Yeah. We're really not sitting in our homes like it looks.
Well, some of us will be at the Dogman conference. Some of us may be drinking. I don't know.
Well, that too.
Right.
I'm not sitting here in my underwear, so yeah, we're good.
Didn't we have this conversation last night? Did you put on different underwear?
He only has one pair.
Well, you turn them inside out, right? What do you get for another day?
Just ew. Just ew.
Yeah, there's no words for that. Oh, but on a serious note, we're here to
Yes.
talk about the Lake Worth monster.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to read up on this because this particular story is newer for me. Um, and as we were talking backstage, I looked it up and I was, checking into it and doing some background on it. And during this time, there was a lot of sightings of this type of goat man creature. It was the late 60s, early 70s, and it was like mass hysteria. It's like one had been seen, and then all of a sudden they're being seen everywhere. There's very famous stories on this creature, and it just amazed me that that went on for a couple years, and then all of it just died. It's like people aren't seeing this creature anymore.
Yeah.
So, question, because I slacked and did not do my homework. So was this creature? Reason being, I'm asking, was this creature like where they came out about it, mass hysteria around the same time, like Boggy Creek or the Momo monster? Was it around the same time frame that everybody was seeing creatures?
No, it predated that.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, it predated that because the Boggy Creek monster, the Falk monster, whatever you want to call him, came out in 72. Well, this took place in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Specifically, the Lake Worth monster. I got the book here, so I had a section here pulled up so we can actually read one of the actual reports by Jim Mars. This all happened in July of 1969.
Oh,
and
wow.
that's one of the things I was just checking on my phone. I was trying to remember when the Pope Lake monster was first seen, because I do think it actually happens after the Lake Worth monster event. Like, I think to your point, the Lake Worth monster event is sort of like that central point. It doesn't mean there weren't already some pre-existing legends out there, but it's like this event happens, and then we have again almost a mass hysteria, which is an interesting point to get to. But this is to properly define the Lake Worth monster event culturally. Like, this happens like just before we land on the moon.
Wow.
And television is brand new, and for the North Texas area, this thing was massive. People went out because, again, everyone talks about the well, there goes my phone. I guess it's over now.
Well, the police actually investigated.
Just leave it there.
Yeah.
The police actually investigated. I mean, it was so serious that the police actually investigated these reports.
Yeah. No, they took. Now, so before we went live, Chrissy, you asked about, there's these stories about some kids pulling a prank. The origin of that comes actually in Jim Mars's first column about this in the Fort Worth Star Telegram, where it says, this is a report from the police. Says, we've had reports about this thing for about 2 months, meaning 2 months prior to this event, where like 6 people are attacked by this thing. They said we've had reports of this thing, but we've always laughed them off as pranks. Now, the following, I think it's literally the following day. No, it's the same day. So it's the morning, and then there's the evening edition, right? So here's the thing. This initial report by Jim Mars, like, it happened the day before. He puts this out. It gets put on WBAP. Which was the primary radio station of the area. It still is. It's all news talk now, but that was W, and then you had WFAA, which was the main news area at the time. This all goes out that morning. Every friggin' body knows about it, and a bunch of people head out to Lake Worth to go look for it. Well, then. I'm sorry, yeah. So it's Thursday evening. So it's the evening, July 10th. The next day, July 11th, we have the evening edition. What happened is during the day of July 11th, they were out there with a group of people, including police officers, because they were worried people were going to get killed. because people had guns. They were going to go shoot this creature. And so that's what they're all worried about, right? By the way, I love the pun they have here. It says Saturday outing next, because this was on Friday. I love
right.
Anyway, so they were talking about how, again, they thought this thing was they thought it was a prank. There was a naturalist that believed it was a bobcat. Like, I'm sorry. This is 1969. Knows what a damn bobcat looks like. So shut your pie hole. Anyway, but here's the thing. This event, the police were there. This creature attacks the group and throws it says witnesses today said the thing threw an automobile tire and wheel 500 feet.
Oh wow.
So it's not just the tire, it's the wheel. And this is from 1969. This is some serious weight. And this thing throws the tire at them, which is why they all started running, including fully armed police officers.
Wow.
It wasn't one cop. It was multiple police officers in multiple squad cars with a large crowd of people. They all saw this thing and they freaked out. But they were still saying, we think maybe it's some kind of a prank or some kid in an ape suit. Right. But then they're like, but it threw it. And they all said, we watched it throw a tire 500 feet.
Right. The kid's not going to do that.
No one could do that. Now,
No.
if you assume it's bouncing along the way, it's like, I'm sorry. That's not easy to do. And who in the world is going to see a bunch of armed cops in the 60s and be like, yeah, I'm just going to throw this tire at him?
Right. Right. Makes no sense.
And not to mention, I mean, you're going to throw something in a presumed attack at, like you said, fully armed cops in Texas, in rural Texas at the time.
Yeah, this is very like this isn't even today. This isn't necessarily a bustling metropolitan area. No. You don't have to go very far before you're like, oh, cool, there's a Starbucks. But which I don't drink Starbucks. I have no use for it. However, my point is, this was at the time very rural, really like this is old school rural. You weren't about to screw with a cop because they would absolutely shoot you and just say, yeah, he attacked us, and everyone's gonna be like, well, sorry, Jim Bob, there was too dumb to figure out just too stupid to put his hands up. There was no if a cop shot you.
And not only the cops were armed, the locals were armed also.
Everyone was, yeah. It's like, again,
so you probably had everything from pistols to deer rifles to shotguns, everything. You know, I mean,
so did anybody pull the trigger at all?
No,
nobody fired at it.
They were all terrified, and they all ran. Everyone ran from this thing because they saw it. And they're like, "This is not." This is broad daylight. This isn't okay. Somebody pulling. Like, I've got a story again. Metroplex Monsters. Dallas Demons, Fort Worth Goatmen, and other terrors of the Trinity River. Available wherever fine books and trashy rags are sold. I've got a story around White Rock Lake at night where, again, the Goatman, this will show up again, appears, and it's like, everyone's like, oh, it's probably just some kids playing a prank. I'm sorry. I know it wasn't legal to carry a firearm in Texas in the late 80s, early 90s. That happened much later. That having been said, everyone was still armed.
Wow.
It's still freaking Texas. It may not have been legal, but you damn well know we were.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
No one's going to pull that. And again, it's like when you hear the description that they give of the creature, it's like, that's not a prank. That's, again, it's way too elaborate to be a prank. Same thing with this. This is not stuff that's happening at night. This is stuff that's all happening in broad daylight. You know, a guy it's 1969. Do you think that gorilla costumes anything that would be convincing to anyone?
Right.
All?
Right.
No. Well, take us back to why were all those people out there to begin with?
So the first sighting, I'm going to be very politically correct here. It's rural. It's rural Texas. It's hot. You know, it's summer. They're probably just hanging out at the lake, right?
All right.
Sure.
That being said, I don't know if they liked pineapple or not. Some people are going to get that. But they were there hanging out, having a good old time. Right. Again, I'm not saying that they were doing anything but playing Parcheesi or just enjoying the lake, and we all like a good summer lake. I'm not saying anything else was happening. However, they were there. They are then assaulted by said creature, which they described as being, again, so Jim Mars is the one who calls them the Goat Man first, right? However, he described, again, they said that it looked like it was part goat because of the fur. But they said it had scales, right? One of the thoughts that I've had, because it's very, very clear that I think what they encountered there was actually a Bigfoot, probably with some mange. Because if you get a good case of bacterial mange, it looks like you have scales. And the reason I say this, the next day, when it jumps on the hood of one of the kids' car that's there, and while they're all trying to get out of there, he says it looked like a burn victim.
Interesting.
So one is saying fish scales, the other one's saying a burn victim. They're not seeing the same. They're seeing the same thing, but they're trying to describe it. They're just unfamiliar with a bad case of bacterial mange. So if there is a biologically natural biological Bigfoot, then yeah, some of them would catch mange from time to time. They're in the wild.
Sure.
And that's probably indicating why he's probably not the happiest camper on the planet at the moment. And so, but the thing is, the name Goat Man is what matters, because everyone goes out there the next day because they want to see the Goat Man. Again, they go out armed because they want to catch it and or kill it and be like, hey, look, here's the monster, right? That's why they're there the second time. Again, they're all there the next day. They know where this is. But essentially they see a Bigfoot, but the name Goat Man is what matters, because this was a huge event. Again, this was national news.
Right.
This was absolutely national news at the time. Where I've got stories and accounts going back to the late 1800s of stories of the creature or the monster, right? Down the creeks and howls. Sound familiar? The name the Goat Man now becomes now everything's the Goat Man.
Right.
Right. And in the weird, again, this is where things get weird. People start seeing goat men, not Bigfoot. They genuinely start seeing goat men, like the White Rock Lake creature that I'm talking about. Two different sightings that are currently recorded describe a full-on satyr, 7 foot tall, horns, hooves, whole 9 yards. But all of them after this account had been around for 20 plus years.
Right.
And again, the Pope Lick monster, all these other goat men pop up right after this 1969 event at Lake Worth.
Sure. Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, because you talk about the differences. I mean, the Goat Man that was in Lake Worth. I mean, they're saying that it was in the wide open. It was in the wide open, where the public monster is supposed to live under this trestled bridge, and it stays hidden.
Yep.
So that they have their differences.
Well, it's more important than that, because when you get a lot of these Goat Man bridges here in Texas, they're all bridges. A lot of them are actually iron truss bridges, like the old, the Denton the one up in Denton, Old Alton Bridge. That's an iron truss bridge. Although old foamy or soapy, one of the two. That's not an iron truss bridge. It's literally just like a thing. Like it's barely a bridge. But again, White Rock Lake, there's an iron truss bridge there. That hangs out. Again, it's like there's every iron truss bridge. And in fact, most bridges have some form of mythology around. Again, after the 60s, it becomes the Goat Man. Right? And it's not, and you see that a lot of the lore and legends about these creatures are pretty much universal, and you realize, oh, they're all derivations of the Hanging Man story. Right? Every iron truss bridge in this country has a Hanging Man mythology.
Oh yeah.
It's like, oh, if you go out at a certain time, you knock 3 times, turn around and spit, whatever. You'll see a guy, a headless man holding a lantern, right? Or you'll hear the sound of the ropes snapping and the bodies falling into the water, right? There's some form of that story. And every bridge, whether it's the crybaby, again, do you know how many crybaby bridges there are in this country? It's insane.
Right.
But all of it, what do? You pull up to the bridge, you flash your lights 3 times, you honk 3 times, you do something 3 times, right? You knock, and you get some sort of supernatural event. The goat man shows up. And again, I realized this when I was researching Metroplex Monsters, Dallas Demons, Fort Worth Goatmen, and Other Terrors of the Trinity River. Once I had like all of the goatmen, because people had written about them, but I'm like, hold on, there's way more goatmen in Dallas than just Old Alton Bridge or in White Rock Lake. And then the Lake Worth, I'm like, there's way more. And I started looking, I'm like, hold on. All of these stories are literally just James Mars's articles with like 1 or 2 other things. They just clipped, like all of these mythologies are just, they took those main elements, including the tile. That was the thing that made me go, hold up, something else is happening here. This thing's always throwing tires at people. I'm like, that's Jim Mars. What do you mean? Tires around every one of these single. Now they probably are now. Don't even get me talking about about how bad the Trinity's polluted. But it's like I'm like, you're telling me that every single one of these bridges has a goatman that likes to throw trash and tires at people? That feels a little. That feels. I mean, that's too specific, right? And I start looking at it and say, it was clear they just took the mythology, what happened at this one event, and the name, and they just put it on these other locations. They just what had been the creature or the monster or whatever now became the goat man. And again, if you look at the Pope Lick monster and some of these others, depending on where you look, a lot of the mythology looks really similar to what Jim Mars was writing.
Right.
And so the question becomes, okay, so that's, again, folklore is not phenomena. We talk about that all the time, right? But here's where it gets weird. So then why do people actually see goatmen?
Yeah.
Because even if the Lake Worth monster itself isn't a goat man, you better believe people have seen goat men.
Right.
We've seen him since the beginning of time. Enkidu, right? He's depicted, I mean, it's the legs of a bull, sure, but it's the same idea.
Right.
It's the same thing. He's depicted as having horns. Again, the earliest rendition we have of him has him with horns on his head and essentially the legs of a bull. That's the same damn thing. Wow. So if it was just a Bigfoot, why are we seeing creatures that kind of look like this? Why do we see them?
Right. That's true. Very true.
And a lot of people will argue that, oh, well, this is, okay, it's a rural area, but I mean, you're just right outside, the main metroplex of Fort Worth, and all this kind of stuff. What they don't realize is this nature preserve is over 3,500 square acres.
Yeah, it's massive.
Okay, wetlands, swamp, forest, even the prairie. I mean, and that's just the wildlife preserve. That's not the nature preserve. That doesn't count the bottomlands that are just naturally there. And this is my old stomping ground. I fished this place almost freaking daily.
Yep.
And honestly, this place is no different than Brown Springs. There's plenty of places for this thing to hide and never be seen if it didn't want to.
Wow.
Yeah, that makes me wonder. I mean, you're talking about there's so many places to hide.
Yeah.
But why would it come out in the open in the daytime and then just start throwing tires?
I think we're looking at, again, if it, we get the scaly description, we get the burn victim description. if it had mange or even eczema, depending on how human you think these things are.
Mhm.
That makes for a pretty waspy critter.
Right.
It's miserable. This, all these people are in its territory, making all kinds of noise, all kinds of racket.
Liking pineapple.
Yeah, liking pineapple. Cats
Or
and
not.
dogs living
Or
together.
not.
Or not.
It's not the first time. If we just look at Bigfoot sightings, it's not the first time that we get reports of them acting territorial.
Right.
Okay. We haven't even brought in the fact that, is it possible that this thing could have been a gugway?
It's possible.
Well, here's my thing. All of these people, and y'all ever, played that game as a kid, you put 10 people around a circle and you tell a secret and it keeps going, and then at the end, the person has to tell the story.
Telephone game, yeah.
So what if it's something similar like that? It suddenly grew horns by one person and.
Well, and again, this is one of those things where the initial reports don't talk about horns. That's all stuff that evolved later. Like it is. Again, it's the name Goatman that matters, because once you've gotten called, what does everyone think of? They're going to think about a satyr, right?
Yeah,
right. And to Texas' point about people do not understand how massive the Lake Worth. That's just the reserve. And again, this is 1969. It was very rural at the time. Now, yes, don't get me wrong. Fort Worth, and again, the surrounding areas, Dallas, were crucial. These were major cities even at that time.
Yeah.
Because of World War II and even World War I. The Metroplex became what it became because of World War II. So this was not in the middle of nowhere, but it was still very heavily rural. And here's the thing, even to this day, I call it the Green Wall. Life in North Texas essentially exists because of the Trinity River, right? Lake Worth is part of the Trinity River complex. It floods every year. So what we've done is we've literally created greenways around around the Trinity River and all of its different areas, because that's where the water has to go. We don't build anywhere near there. We've actually walled up certain places. Essentially it is just this wall. We mow right up to it, right? And even around our roads, what do? We have them curved so all the water rolls off, and we have all the trees cleared up to a certain point. We mow up to that point, and where the tree line starts, you have these really thick shrubs and tall grass that show up. You can't see 2 feet into it. Wow. It's a green wall. There are places in DeSoto that's right next to the 10 Mile Creek where if you didn't know it was there, you would never know that you were 2 or 3 feet from falling 20 feet into a creek made out entirely of limestone. All of North Texas is like this. Anywhere where water exists for any period of time, that's where the trees are. We mow right up to it. We've created a way for these things to hide, and we have to give them pathways. I talk about this in the book. There is thought to be anywhere from 1,000 to 3,000 feral hog in Irving alone, not Irving in Dallas, and just the city of Irving. And Irving, for those who don't know, is essentially just a continuation of the concrete sprawl that is downtown Dallas.
Wow.
No one ever sees these damn things. No one ever sees them, but they cause thousands of dollars of property damage every year. And why? Because of the green wall. They can go anywhere they want, get out of someplace pretty quick, and just disappear over instantly.
Right.
These things can move. Again, it follows the river, right?
Right.
Follows the streams. We've given Bigfoot an entire highway, and we've made it so that no one's ever going to see him traveling it.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And y'all, and fortunately, and very possibly, by the time that this recording airs, y'all will have seen the area we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And as developed as it is from the 1960s,
Mhm.
you're going to be shocked at how wooded and remote the area still is.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I mean, you're going to get to see firsthand the territory that this thing has to roam and never be seen. Okay.
At all.
And not to mention, and here we go again, what is just north of where this sighting took place? Oh, it's an Air Force base.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Not to mention, not just an Air Force base, the old Carswell Air Force Base, which was rumored for a long time to have stuff liking to Area 51 in it and stuff like that.
Interesting.
You know, so it's you have this whole puzzle that we hear so much associated with Bigfoot sightings and Bigfoot active areas and stuff. You have all these pieces of this puzzle at this location. The average depth of Lake Worth is 3 feet.
Yeah.
It's a
Really? That's it?
shallow lake. Yeah, it's a very, very shallow lake. Now you got to remember that's the average depth. There's I think the maximum depth in the channel is only like 20, 25 feet.
I thought there's still 75 feet near the dam.
It may be, but it's got so much backwater and little creeks and stuff that are part of the lake system that when you average the depth, that's what brings it up. They've had to dredge this lake before because it was getting so shallow. And
that's true.
It is not, and I'm going to drive y'all around, so you can actually see the areas, even down around the houses, the lake houses and stuff. It's still, you still got places this critter could go, and if it's traveling at night and it's on the lake shores,
right? Wow.
Who's going to see it?
Yep. And here's the thing: every lake, there are no natural lakes in North Texas, and
Caddo is touted to be the only natural lake in Texas, but it's not really.
It's not, yeah. But I'm just going with North Texas because you don't have to throw out the whole Caddo Lake thing. But North Texas specifically, there are no. It's a Texan thing. There's no natural lakes, right? Again, water saw Texas and realized, oh crap, I can't be here, and left, which is why we have all the marine fossils. Life is only possible because of the Trinity River. But what we've done is we've dammed up the Trinity River in certain locations to create these lakes. So it's not just that we have these rains every year and we have to, give room for the flooding. We've artificially created protected areas so that we would have more wildlife. Like Joe Pool Lake, I remember when it opened, and I've got several stories again because so essentially Lake Worth's over here. Well, for you it'd be over here. So okay, so if Lake Worth's over here, right? It's the Trinity part that it comes, it sort of merges, and Dallas is over here. It goes through, but it has the Mountain Creek tributary that goes down. Okay. We dammed that up to make it Joe Pool Lake. And then it goes a little bit further down. We've dammed it up finally. But there's other tributaries off of that area as well. I have multiple sightings along that area and reports of people seeing these things in that area. So essentially you can easily see how they're coming from Fort Worth, the Lake Worth area. They travel down, even the same in August of that year. I just happened to be in Cedar Hill. I'm like, look, I want to see everything you got. And they're like, oh, the Historical Society has these 2 accounts, by the way, which means Lake Worth Monster happens later, and then everyone forgets about it later that year. Just a few months later in Cedar Hill, the same theoretically creature or multiple creatures are seen right there off of Mountain Creek, where I have several broad daylight sightings, a lot of night sightings.
Right.
Around that, well, you can see again between Mountain Creek, the stuff around Waxahachie Creek and Red Oak Creek, and again we have a sighting from the 1930s in Waxahachie Creek. Literally, I know exactly where it is because of the description. 10 Mile Creek has Bigfoot sightings. Of course, they have other sightings. That's a whole other kettle fish. But my point is, you can literally see how these things again, at least the biological Bigfoot would migrate from Lake Worth down. They'd bypass Dallas because they figured out there's too many people. They'd go south and then travel out back, and then they'd probably just meet back up at the Trinity in Wilmer Hutchins in that area, and just head out into just nothing but rural grass. Like if you were to pull up a satellite map of Dallas, you're going to notice an awful lot of green. Because that's what we do. We live on these little concrete islands that we make little concrete bridges, like roads to another concrete island. And then everything else is green. Like it's, again, right now everything's tan, but it's like everyone thinks that the Dallas-Fort Worth area is some way. It's not. It is not what you think it is. If you don't live here, you don't understand. There are people who grow weed and have for years just out in the middle of it's literally the middle of nowhere. It's just a few minutes away from downtown Dallas. There's a whole field of weed that gets burned. The DEA finds it. There are places where when my kid was hanging out with his friends in just forgot. It's just north of south of Italy. It's technically Italy, but we call it Italy. I'm like, look, don't go into these other fields. Like you stay on this property because I don't want you walking into some pot grower's field and either getting caught up in some fishing line that's got hooks in it. It's going to take out your eyes, or just flat out getting shot.
Right.
Like this is you don't have to travel far in North Texas to hit rural, and rural means nobody.
Wow, that's interesting.
Well, the whole area surrounding Fort Worth. I mean,
when has the last reported sighting been of this creature in that area?
Lake Worth proper, it's been a while. Although when I talked to her niece, so Tex has one signed by Sally Ann herself. This is one that Sally Ann had produced, I think it was in the 80s, but her niece was selling them. According to her niece, they were still out there. Now, again, that is what it is. But off the tributaries, again, Mountain Creek, I'm talking 2005.
Wow.
And later. Like, again, these are accounts relatively recently. I think one was even 2015, if we're including Mountain Creek going off into the DeSoto Lancaster area with the 10 Mile Creek. Very recently. Now I haven't heard anything more recent, but I mean, it's been within the last 10, 15 years. At least that's one that I have recorded.
Right. Okay. So I guess my question is, we're going to go check out that area. Do we need to bring our boots? Are we going to be doing some research, and are you just going to show us the area?
It honestly, it depends on, I mean, I would, we may do some light hiking. Okay. But I don't think we're going to have the time to get really, really in depth because we're going to be busy.
Oh, I know.
Right.
So probably it's going to be more driving around than anything else.
Okay.
But there's nothing against us getting out and traipsing around and kind of looking at the area. So
yeah, for me it doesn't matter. I'll already have my gear in my car. It won't matter.
Yeah. Well,
it won't matter at all.
Well, I have my boots packed because of Falk, but so I'll have my stuff on me anyway.
Yeah.
Again, we're probably not going to have a whole lot of time to go deep. So, but I mean, there's to see where this area actually happened. It's basically, again, it's right there on the shoreline. Greer Island is right there. Like it's all built out. So if you want to see where the actual location was, you don't need to go hiking for that. You could, I wouldn't wear high heels. I mean, I know Tex likes them, but I wouldn't wear them. But yeah, you're not going to be rugged primitive either, which we've already established Brandy is just too good for.
Yeah. Question. So I lost my train of thought. Never mind. Man, that was a good question too.
Well, let me just change tracks for just a minute. I'm going to flip this coin just a hair.
I know what it is. Go ahead,
okay, Brandy. Well, ask it before I change it.
Okay. Is there any where you've noticed a substantial amount of like missing people or anything in that area?
I'll let Tex take that one.
Not overly. I mean,
well,
honestly,
I guess my point being is like, the LBL, there's people goes missing here all the time, and we know
it's nothing like that. Yeah, it's nothing like that. You have the occasional one go missing, but nothing that really stands out like we're talking about.
Okay.
This does tie, however, into going back to the actual goat man, right? Mm-hmm. There is at least one, if not multiple, and we've talked about this before, very active, very powerful occultist groups or covens in the area that do practice sacrifice. Human sacrifice is sort of a question mark, but it certainly should not be off the table with the police officers I've spoken to.
Gotcha. Okay.
Do people go missing? Yes. Can we say it's the no?
Okay.
But the problem is there is a much larger. Again, going back to the goat man thing, the problem is when you start getting to people who actually see goat man, the locations where they're seen have histories of some really weird things. Mm-hmm. And again, the connection to the bridges is not accidental either. Right, there's the folklore, but that's different. When you actually realize, okay, hold on, some things are actually seen in these areas. There's other associated material, and if you ask yourself if satanic ritual abuse is real, and it is, we know how many people go missing every year and aren't found. I mean, at least half of them are found, right? But when you look at the people who genuinely just disappear, and even if you subtract the known murder victims, there's a huge percentage where you're like, this feels a little weird. There's reason to think that these are not unconnected ideas. I'll say it that way.
Okay. I just want to flip this coin a little bit because I find it strange or very similar and crazy kind of similar. When you talk about goatmen, you associate them with bridges. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, I don't know if anybody remembers the childhood, the little nursery rhyme fairy tale thing of the three billy goats gruff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
it's based on text.
So, right. But what we were dealing with is three goats at separate times going across this bridge. Mm-hmm. Okay. But we have a troll living underneath. Mm-hmm. And he's the one that said that he was going to eat them. But it's crazy similar how if you kind of mesh the troll and the goat together, you've kind of got this little monster thing that may have goat legs that lives under a bridge. I'm just saying.
Well, what's
I'm
a
just
troll?
saying.
Well, you don't even have to combine the goat and the troll. What is a troll? It's a hairy, ugly, violent creature.
Right.
That lives under the bridge. And again, it's three goats, right? Again, you knock 3 times, you honk your horn 3 times. Mm-hmm. It is the same repetition of theme.
So
you have three, and you have this hairy monster that lives near or under the bridge. This is a universal idea.
mhm. So what I'm getting at is that after, because you're saying that the sighting of the Fort Worth monster was predated a lot of these sightings elsewhere,
Mhm.
including the public monster and the one in Maryland, and it predates that. I'm wondering if people are imagining these things in their head, or they're trying to say that it's a goat man again, and it could be Sasquatch or something similar to that, or maybe even a troll. That's not totally out of the question. Um, I'm just wondering if it was kind of like a mass hysteria, because, like I was saying
Mhm.
before, it started in the late 60s and it went through about the mid 70s, and then it just kind of died off.
Mhm.
It's like there were the sightings were very few and far between. They weren't
Mhm.
national news anymore, and they weren't being put out there. It just makes me wonder that if
Mhm.
some of these stories weren't made up, or to keep to
Yeah.
keep people away. And I speak about the public monster
Mhm.
because the bridge there is fenced off. You can't get to that bridge.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if people made up those stories to keep them away from the bridge, because people have died on that bridge.
Yeah, good question.
You're certainly not wrong. I mean, so again, this goes back to what is folklore, right? Folklore, Texas doesn't like us talking about him with the whole Billy Goats thing. She's very sensitive about it. Um, folklore is the story of the people, and yes, a lot of folklore, it does evolve and grow around ideas.
Mhm.
It takes on its own life, and a lot of it is, hey, kids, don't go over there. There's a monster. When it's like you just don't want them to fall off the. That's absolutely real. That is a real thing.
Mhm.
However, the two sightings that I have of the White Rock Lake goat man
Mhm.
are both post late 80s, early 90s.
Right.
Like these are so yes. With any of this stuff, we have to say, look, folklore is folklore, right?
Mhm.
It is what it is, and certainly it is created, it's generated through different methods, and yes, a lot of it is don't do that, okay? And you're right, a lot of people are probably making it up. However, we have this other problem but people still actually say they've seen these things.
Mm-hmm.
And the question becomes, okay, so are there goat people hanging around, or are we either creating them because of these mass hysterias, or are we just giving them license to be in our reality, right? Because
Could we be conjuring them as a demon, something demonic? I mean, because we talk about all the these cults and all these other things going on. Could we be conjuring these things that are actually demonic?
I think we are. And again, are we just giving them a form to take, or are we co-creating them with the story, right? The idea of the tulpa. But it's like the thing is, as soon as you get away from like the place where the story is supposed to be, that's one of the things I noticed in here. Third time's the charm, right? Metroplex
Right.
Monsters, Dallas. I just forgot Dallas Demons. They were Fort Worth Goatmen, other tears of Trinity River. The tributaries, whether they're man-made or not, you get far enough away from like White Rock Lake. I have several accounts of these things, but they don't really look like goatmen anymore. They've lost the horns, they've lost the fur, they've
Hmm.
become more almost alien-like. Old Alton Bridge, right? There is a creature. It's only 5 foot tall that crosses the road, and it's like a quarter mile down. It's on the same road as Old
Right.
Alton Bridge, and it looks more like an alien, but its legs are bent backwards like like
Mm-hmm.
any man would, right?
Right. Right.
And so there becomes the issue of are we giving them permission to take a particular form? Like maybe they don't look like, again,
Right.
Baphomet looks like a goat man. Enkidu look like a goat man. Are they trying to give us that form so they can take it, or is it just that our stories allow them to take that form? Again, look at you want to talk about fake lore? I know we're running out of time, so I'll try and make this quick. Look at Slender Man. That was entirely made up. We know who made it up. We know when, and yet it blew up, and people started seeing him. Is Goatman the same way? Is Jim Mars calling Bigfoot a Goatman lead to us creating Goatmen in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, in the Poplica? And that's the question.
Right.
Yeah.
That, you know, and that was my question, is like, how much of this are we conjuring up ourselves? You know, playing with, you know, magic you shouldn't have, or, you know, doing things you shouldn't have. We're just going to leave it at that. I'm not going to go into how you do it. But conjuring these things up, I mean, because, you know, you're thinking of the most terrifying thing in your mind. And, you know, with the stories coming out in the 60s, you know, the kids in the 80s and the 90s, they know these stories, and this is what they're conjuring. You know, this is what they perceive to be demonic.
Right.
This is what it's going to look like. So that, you know, it's because then you have to put it in your mind: is this paranormal or is this cryptid?
Right. Right. Yep.
Well, I'm going to say this before Jason does, because I know he loves saying this, that he's 30 minutes away every day from going, it's all paranormal, I'm done and walking off.
Any minute, just I'm done.
We ran into what I think is the exact situation that we're talking about when we were up in Brown Springs at one point. And that's the night everything just went off the chain. Jason was there.
Okay, you're going to have to hold on, Tex, because if we're going to continue with this, we're going to have to take a 5-minute break. Chris, why don't you just go ahead and throw that on, and we'll take a 5-minute, and then we'll be right back.
Okay, 5 minutes.
4 minutes to go, folks. 4 minutes. Three minutes. We're almost there. 2-minute warning, guys. 2-minute warning. One minute. 1 minute.
Hey, everybody, welcome back.
Welcome back. We didn't mean for this to go that long, but here we are.
We didn't. And Jason had to cut loose, so.
That's all right. And we didn't want Randy to kill us. But go ahead, Tex, with what you were going to say.
I don't even remember what I was talking about.
You said that before Jason says it.
Well, I said that part. No, what I was gonna talk about is the one time that we were in Brown Springs, and it's not everybody talks about everything going off the chain, and I'm not talking about the night you were up there, Randy. It was Jason was there, and he was actually at camp, and me and Pops, Gary Spike Sr. and Jr., along with Laney and Amy and Laney from What the Paranormal, we'd went up to the cemetery. And that's the night we all experienced something at the same time, but it was different phenomenon. And we were yards apart. And we're talking voices, apparitions, sounds. I mean, the whole 9 yards, equipment failures, everything. And only 2 of us saw apparitions. Now, these apparitions were, and I call them apparitions, entity, because I don't know what else to call them.
Right.
They were cat-like. They come down the trees. There was like 3 of them, to the point to where the junior and senior drew their pistols. So it was weird. So is there an energy or an entity, or however you want to put it, that tapped into our subconscious? Because everything that we experienced was something that was significant to that person in some way. Okay. And like I said, we were yards apart. We could see each other. We were all experiencing different things at the same time. Well, to me, that leads credence to what you were saying about, do we conjure these things? Now, I think we have to be careful when we talk about conjuring things, because we're not talking about doing it on purpose. Okay.
Right.
We're talking about these entities or energies, like I said, being able to tap into our subconscious and pick things out and present itself in that way. So that very well could lead to what we're talking about with the whole goat man phenomenon. And now we talk about the the Slender Man and even Dog Man.
Yeah.
So
Well, and that leads me back to Brown Springs. Now, in Brown Springs, you've told us the story about there have been known witches out there that are sacrificing things. You and I have both witnessed something that we would consider some type of magic, whether
right.
let's not even use the word black, but there we are.
Right.
That's why I use the word conjure.
Right.
Because there are people that are doing this and letting these things loose, and they have no control on them. They never do.
Right.
Just when they think they do, but they don't. These things, they work on their own. They have their own agenda. They're going to do what they want to do. So that leads me to believe that if this happened to you and it was digging into your subconscious and bringing these things out, is that part of it?
I think so.
Could the Goat Man be part of this too?
Yeah.
I think it's at least part of it, because I do think, like the Lake Worth monster, there was a physical creature. Okay, I mean this thing, it threw a tire 500 feet.
Right.
With multiple witnesses in the daytime.
Right.
So, but when you start talking about the whole actual Goat Man phenomenon that, like Jason was referring to, where they're actually seeing the satyr type creatures,
right?
I do think that all the talk about Goat Man and everything, I think that leads to, like we were talking about, the conjuring aspect of it,
right?
Especially,
or the not knowing they're doing it, but they are.
Right, exactly. Especially in the, well, I don't think it matters, but because the energy is there. It just depends on who it chooses to attach itself to and use at that point. Okay.
Right.
And we as investigators take that risk, leaving ourselves open to experience the stuff.
Yep.
And I think that's where we have to really rely on our protection and our faith to do that, to have that level of protection when we go out in the field. But you have people that have these sightings. It's like you touched on it last night. The things manifesting themselves in people's houses. And it's like, I don't think that's really the Bigfoot that we talk about. I think these may be a manifestation that these people are wanting to contact these creatures so bad that another entity with, nefarious reasoning latches onto that and uses it as a doorway or a window. Like I say it all the time. I worry about people wanting to contact or have a relationship with these creatures so bad that they open their door, to something that's going to pretend to be that. And I think we're probably seeing the same thing, maybe a lot of these creatures that are being seen in these urban areas are a manifestation of the tales that, we've heard throughout the years.
Could very well be.
Or if they just see something strange, it looks weird, their imagination takes over, and there you go.
Right.
So,
right. I mean, the stories that I hear, goat men are evil.
Right.
And I mean, that kind of crosses over into the Wendigo part too. I believe that they're demonic. I believe that these things are very demonic, and I don't know if these two have a connection. Maybe they're seeing Wendigos and calling them goat men, or something of that nature. I mean, it's a very hard thing. Now, Wendigos, I don't know when the last sighting has been of one of those, but there's a lot of similarities in them.
There is.
A lot.
You know, and you talk, and I hate to keep going back to Brown Springs, but we pulled so much evidence out of there, it's hard not to.
Right.
The picture that was taken by DDoS, and I mean, he took the picture, texted it to me, just showing the area that it was grown up. And I looked at it and I said, "Holy crap!" And you know, I said, "Well, what about that big boy standing behind the trees?" Well, it turned out we went out and took measurements of this shadowy creature, and that's all I can call it.
Right.
This thing was 12 to 14 feet tall.
Yeah.
And when we did the recreations, well, then you fast forward a couple of years and we're up in the cemetery. In fact, it was that same trip that I was talking about earlier, where all that stuff went off the chain, that Gary Spikes Jr., we were coming out of the cemetery and he kind of went off. There's a little sandy mound right off the trail. And he said, "I want to go up here and look for tracks." He did find tracks. He found a trackway, which was bipedal hooven prints.
Wow.
That were about 12 inches, you know, in diameter.
Sure.
So we're looking at something that is 12 to 14 feet tall, bipedal, with hoof print, with hooves. Is it the same creature? Well, that would lead credence to a dark entity that we've heard about for so many years that is either controlling or protecting that place. I lead more to controlling, not protecting. That's just me.
I would go with that. Yeah.
But if there's that, and we know we've had occult activity in the area.
Yes.
Okay. You look at Jessica Jones remote viewed those famous attacks, that dual killing that was down there in Brown Springs. Was supposedly a Bigfoot that did that to those people. What she got from it was occult, more of an occult thing. There's a family that's touted to be right there in that area that is a family of werewolves.
Interesting.
So, you know, that you put all that together, what do you come up with? You come up with pretty evil doings going on.
Yeah.
And I think we may be seeing the same phenomenon around with these goatman sightings, the actual goatman sightings. I think Lake Monster was a Sasquatch. You know, he possibly was missing some hair, and that was just the way his skin looked, or he had eczema or mange or however, whatever. You know, that would describe the attitude. I would have the attitude.
Right.
If it was another creature that we call a gugway, which we don't know what that is, they tend to be a very waspy creature, and
and they eat your face.
Very angry. They're very angry. So that would explain throwing something.
Yeah, but that's not but it's just the tire. We keep talking about, it threw a tire. But how often do we hear stories about Bigfoot throwing rocks?
All the time.
So this could have been just what it found laying there and just chunked it.
Right. And we've not heard just little rocks either. Exactly. We've heard boulders. They're picking up boulders and throwing them. So is it far-fetched that this could have been a Sasquatch with the skin irritation? Absolutely.
It could have been as simple as that. It could have been as simple as that.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it was roaming around trying to find some kind of relief. Maybe the condition had gotten so bad that it was driven out of its mind.
Sure.
Maybe that's why we don't see the sightings. Maybe this was a lone creature, was exiled from the family root because of that condition, and because nobody wanted to breed with him or whatever. Now, I know I'm speculating here, but that's what all this is.
Well, it is.
You know,
and so they could have been.
If this was a lone creature, and he had this condition. Maybe it got so bad that he got an infection and died. And that's
Right.
why we don't have any more sightings.
Right. Maybe it was using the lake to soothe, it's the skin irritation, anything. I mean, there's
Mud and moss are very, very soothing. Okay. That makes sense. It makes sense, being close to the water, so.
Sure. Absolutely. Wow.
That again, more questions. It's just like, wow, and because, we hear about the goatmen being associated with bridges and things. Again, that brings me back to that fairy tale story. And I'm just wondering if people are playing upon that and producing or conjuring or doing something to make these things real. Opening up that door for them to come through.
Right.
And, that evil entity will take any specific shape of what scares you.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
So yeah, that does bother me. That does bother me a little bit, that this could, that people are actually doing that. And because I called it a mass hysteria, because like I said, it started in the 1960s and went through the 70s. And, it was just really crazy, and all these things that when it was first sighted, there were no horns on the Lake Worth monster. And then there were horns. And then, it went from a big hairy creature to this goat man thing. And it's like the story keeps changing. So I guess you could only take the first accounts of the story.
Right.
Like in the book that Jason has, those first accounts, and go from there, because everything else is just an embellished story.
I don't think it's an accident or a coincidence that these took place along the same time that the Falk Creek monster was being sighted up there. Not, it wasn't long after. It was just a few years after this stuff that took place that the Legend of Boggy Creek movie was made from the sightings that took place earlier.
Yeah, the actual sighting for the Legend of Boggy Creek was in the 40s. All that took place in the 40s.
Yeah. So you've got, and it's not, when we're talking about the Lake Worth monster, when we're talking about the Falk monster, we're not talking about an unreasonable amount of distance that.
No,
it is way closer than you think.
3 hours by driving.
Right. Was it 210 miles or 300 miles or something like that? Given the time frame and given the river, the riverways,
Yeah, and we always talk about food sources and things like that. What if they just have a migrational pattern that they follow, and it takes them right down into that area, and they kind of circle and come back around?
Well, that's that's what mountain lions do.
Right.
Yeah,
that's true.
They have, what is it, 150 square mile radius or something like that. Could be bigger. I can't remember. And they just kind of circle their territory. That way they don't empty the area of food. Of resources.
Yeah.
Because in North Texas, we'll see there's areas you can almost, it looks like a clock. You can see where the mountain lion sightings are, and every, so often comes right back to the same areas, so, and it's not just rural area. They're seen in urban areas too. And with the amount of growth that we're seeing, well, you're going to have more sightings anyway. So.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And as we as people are spreading outwards, their patterns have to change also. I mean, they could still make, that 150-mile loop or whatever, but it just changes.
And one thing that caught my eye when I was reading on this stuff is because I was reading on the wildlife management area there in Lake Worth and all that kind of stuff. At the same time that these sightings were going on, they were doing a lot of work in that wildlife refuge area on Greer Island. Maybe it got pushed out of its area.
Maybe it was mad about that.
So there you
Maybe
go.
it was angry. I mean, it had nowhere to go. It was out in the open. It didn't have, its hiding area. And maybe it's just angry. And then it come up to the spot, seeing all these people, and just decided to chuck something because he's, trying to get him out of there so he could move.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah. Crazy
I mean,
stuff.
they were building pavilions and picnic tables and roads and all kinds of stuff around the same time. So, it's very possible that it got pushed out of its area that it was normally in. If it had the skin condition on top of it, it's irritable anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Sure is.
Or maybe just that area was in the middle of its migrational pattern, and it's like you have nowhere to go. I mean, you got the lake on one side, and then you have the land on the other, and then people are all on the land and in the water, and you're like, I have nowhere to go.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yep.
Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Very strange.
There's a lot of factors that I think we have to throw into that. I mean, when we're trying to figure that out.
Absolutely.
No, I would agree. Definitely food for thought today, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely.
More
questions, I guess, that I'll never know.
Let's talk about the Dogman Conference, because when this airs, people will still be able to get tickets.
Yes.
So if anybody is in the area of Dallas, Fort Worth, any of those areas, come over to the second annual Dogman Cryptid Conference. It's in White Settlement, and the lineup of speakers is amazing. And Tex, you're going to be there talking.
Yes, ma'am. I am going to be talking about, my presentation's cryptids up close and personal.
Awesome.
And so we're going to be showing. Somebody's mad.
It might be Kringle. Kringle gets a little yappy.
We're going to be putting some evidence out there that we found, and talking about the experiences that we've had, and what these things could be as far as Dogman and even Bigfoot. So we're going to be talking about a few cryptids, and I've got a feeling I'll have to touch on Lake Worth, since we are going to be in the area. I mean, we're going to be 10 minutes from where this stuff took place.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you absolutely should.
The evenings after the conference, I'm wondering if we're going to see people descend on that area looking for the Lake Worth goat man. I know we're going to make a drive out there.
Yes,
but, I think it's a good thing. I mean, they need some traffic out there. So.
Right. Absolutely. And so if you're in the area, Saturday all day is speakers, and as well as Sunday. So
yes.
We have Blondes and Booze has a booth, so come and say hi to all of us. The whole team's going to be there, except unfortunately for Bigfoot Michigan Rob, which he will be missed. And it's going to be a great time.
Yep. And Tex will have his booth and all that good stuff. So.
Yep. And with us, with Brandy and I, we will have Robbie Rains with DAX Machina, and he has his own show, What's Really Out There. And we will also have Greg Ogles with Relic Films will be hanging out with us and stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And I mean, Bob Van Buren's going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Little Tex, as a lot of people call him, Nicholas, he's going to be there. Cool. And Donnie Cho's going to be there. Jason, of course, will be there. Randy will be there.
Mm-hmm.
And Danielle Diva is flying in from Canada, and she's going to be there. Okay. So there's going to be a lot of, not just the speakers. There's going to be a lot of people that, even us that know each other haven't met in person.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
So it's just as exciting for us as it is anybody else that's going to go to the conference.
Oh, yeah. Most definitely. So we're gonna make the best of our time and just have a great weekend and explore a little bit and see old friends and meet new.
That's
Yeah,
it.
it's gonna be a good time.
It's going to
Yep.
be a good time.
Yep, for sure. So with that, I have to use the little girls' room. So let's end this show.
We've been sitting here for quite some time.
I've been kind of jiggling. That darn tea goes right through me.
Yeah, doing
Right,
the chair
right.
dance. I get you.
Yes. So anyway, we appreciate everybody tuning in. And like I said, come on over and if you're in the Fort Worth area, come on over. And
Yes.
until next week, we will see you all later. Have a good night. See
Good
ya.
night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.